All right. We think we're already starting. We do this every time. I'm pretty sure while that's doing that, we're starting. But we always want to go, hi, we're starting, but we're waiting until this does what it just did so that we can click out of here. And then we are going to push record.
Guys, we're so excited. We're so excited.
Just because we got a name.
We got a name.
Gina, tell them what the name of our podcast is.
EMPHORY Talks, Freedom Speaks.
A remembering?
Oh, a remembering of your identity as well. Yeah. It's very exciting because really, we talked about in that first episode how our experience with EMPHORY has been one of freedom. And so it's really, really cool to have these conversations and these talks over EMPHORY because really, as we have these talks, like the freedom that comes speaks for itself. So that's really where that name comes from. So we're excited that we have a name and feels good.
Yeah, because I think that that's one of the coolest things, at least for me, is there's such a deep infusion of freedom in in the information that even if you don't always grasp the information, you experience the freedom.
Yeah.
And the information might come later, but there's always this sense of freedom that comes with just hearing it, which I just think is like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It is so cool. Yeah. So we're excited to have these talks with you and can't wait to hear from you about how you're finding maybe your own freedom through it.
Yeah. And so Gina made us a hat. Do you love our hat? And she pulled out
Principle 23. So again, if you listen to the first episode, you'll know that the EMPHORY model has 36 principles and 12 practices. And through all these episodes, our goal is to get through all of them with you and unpack them one at a time. And we'll throw some other fun stuff in there, but really at the foundation of all of this, and you'll actually see it as one of our practices, is our presupposition for the model is that we're 100% human, 100% spirit. And so you'll find as we unpack this, that's kind of important to keep in mind.
Yeah. So what is Principle 23, Gina?
Principle 23 is free will and destiny.
I like this one.
It is a good one. So let's just chat again, because this is one of the first episodes where we're really diving in on it. When we talk about principles, what are principles in our model?
So let me back up just a little bit to everything is the law. And the law is the one absolute that controls, can we say controls? Controls everything. And the reason that it is absolute is because it's self-evident, right? So what's come through is these 12 practices and these 36 principles. And the 36 principles are the self-evidentness of the law in kind of the rules of how the human nature works and how the spiritual nature works. And one of the things that you will hear us say over and 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 over is we have been taught that like spiritual is better and humanness is less than. And that's part of why there's less freedom when we're following that model. Because really it's 100%, 100%, and they are equal. They are equally valuable. And so as we start to look at our principles and look at, well, how does the human nature go and how does the spiritual nature go, and realize that both sides have value, and then the amount that we navigate each side is how the uniqueness of all of life actually plays out.
Yeah, I like to describe it almost like a DNA helix. Like we have the capacity of 100% human and the capacity 100% spirit, but it's like this cool, unique strand that is for each of us here. So we're exercising 83% and 20 or 17%, like on either side, but everyone's little helix looks different because it's their unique representation of what came to the planet. So it's fun.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we talk about our principles, what's really fun is they're opposite, which makes all of this a little crazy making at first. It's like, oh, the human nature is opposite of my spiritual nature. How can I do both? That doesn't make sense. But we're here to share with you how you might be able to try.
Yeah. And so going back to one of the things, again, the foundation and our presupposition of what we believe is we already are 100% human, 100% spirit, but we're enmeshed. And we don't know where one starts and the other one ends. And we don't even know really, because we have deified our spirit side and we've demonized our human side. And so there's things on the spirit side that we actually attribute to the human side because that's bad and wrong and yucky or something we don't like, when in reality, when we realize that that's actually something on our spirit side that is being used amiss, and we go, what? Our spirit side is just as naughty as our human side? Yes, because either side out of balance from the other is not beneficial, right? And so going back to, like, we're enmeshed, and so what we do in the principles is we separate them all. We separate everything. So everything is crystal clear. What is human? What is spirit? And then the goal is to integrate it, right? We're always connected, yet if we're connected and we don't know where one starts and the other one ends, then we're enmeshed and we can't navigate well. So we separate all of the principles in order to integrate back into how do we then practice, which is why we have principles and practices.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So again, today we're doing principle 23, which is free will on the human side
and destiny on the spirit side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want to chat about that first? Like, should we describe both sides? Should we, like, how do you want to dig into this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Free will. Describing free will versus destiny. Yeah. How are they opposite?
Yeah. Well, when we think about fate, right, we're like, oh, we don't have any choice. And so I think that that's part of, like, where, again, we get tripped up with, well, if destiny is destiny and my fate is already, like, set in stone, then why do I even care? Why am I even doing anything?
Yeah. And free will on its own, without maybe this idea of destiny, might feel similarly. It might feel kind of hollow because it's all these choices, but for what? Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because now I used to be like, well, how can they fit together? And now I'm on the other side of it where I'm like, how did they not?
How do they not fit together?
How do they not fit together? Because really, one of the things that I'm finding as I'm coaching people through this is we're starting this on one side a little bit more than the other. Like, some of us are spiriting the shit out of life. Some of us are humaning the shit out of life. And both of those experiences are fairly hollow without the other, right? In the prior episode, we talked about the colander. So when we look at maybe the, like when we separate free will on its own. It's just choices, right? Tons of choices.
Yeah.
There's
And
no,
what's the point?
and what's the point? And
Mhm.
just like you said, destiny, if I'm going to get there anyways, what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of being in my human at all?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so all I can see is the value right now. I don't know where to go with this.
Yeah, well, tell us the value. Like, well, how do you put the two together? What does it look like when the two are functioning as one? Because guys, that's the ultimate goal, is for the two to function as one. Now, it might be that Gina came to the planet to exercise in her experience more free will, but there always has to be some destiny in it. And I might have come to the planet to experience more or play out more destiny, but I have to have some free will mixed in it. So how does it play out that both are functioning simultaneously?
Well, we get to, in our spirit is the knower, the one that holds everything that already is and where we're, I guess, going per se. I don't have another word for it, but it's already there. And our human came to give the spirit an experience along the way. And so that free will plays out, and I get to choose how I get to that destiny. Even if I don't know what it is, I can rest. For me, how it plays out is I can rest assured that all of this plays together. I'm going into a practice. Like, I can't screw this up because the destiny is where I'm heading. And I don't even have to know it yet. But I get to just navigate my life in my human body with that resting knowledge that there's a point, there's a purpose, there's somewhere I'm going. And that each step along the way, I get to just decide. I get to just decide and decide and decide, and I'll get there. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I'm looking at, and it's so cool because you are on the other side of it. So it's like, you're like, well, it just is. Like, it just is so obvious, right? But I like to look at, like, I get the question a lot when people go, well, I don't believe in destiny. I only believe in free will. And I'm like, oh no, destiny plays a part. And they're like, no, I don't believe that. And I'm like, okay, well, so what do you do for a living? Well, and now I'm just going to pretend. Well, I'm an attorney. Okay, well, why are you an attorney? Well, I don't know, because I really like to debate in high school. Okay, cool. Well, why did you like to debate? Well, I don't know. When I did it, it like felt really good. And so I like doing it. And somebody said, if you like that, then you should be an attorney. And so here I am. Okay, well, then did you choose for that to feel good? And they're like, well, no, I just felt good. And I'm like, destiny. Right?
Yeah.
That is the thing. There's something inside of us that we don't purposely choose to feel good about it. It just, when I do it, it feels good. That's destiny, right? And so I love to point that out, because I think, like, there's less argument for no free will. For no free will. People will say, well, if my fate is already there, then why should I choose? But most people don't actually sit around and test that, because what will happen is, if you choose to just sit around, destiny will take over and you'll get super bored just sitting around, and you'll be like, I feel like I want to do this. I.e., once again, you're choosing to at least get up and do the thing that you're being prompted to do, right? So I think that's a little bit of how they sit alone. And then recognizing, like what you were saying, how they play out together is, we can't screw this up. And so it doesn't really matter what you choose, because destiny will always keep you on your path. And it does matter what you choose, because the experience that you have on that path will be based on your choices. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually, it creates a lot of freedom in knowing that too, right? Like I can choose whatever. And if destiny is based on that feel good or like that knowing, some of us would call it a knowing, like I just had a knowing that that's where I was going, but or ooh, that felt yummy and that felt good. I get to free will my way by deciding what kind of experience I want to have. I get to choose if I want to have more struggle and challenge or get to have more yummy and fun. I didn't realize this along the way. I mean, I was so entrenched in the experience of overwhelm that I didn't actually know that was part of my free will. I didn't even know that it was part of my choice on the path I was walking down. I didn't know where I was going either, but I made it to a destination which was important on my path, but I knew obviously it wasn't the end one because I'm not dead yet. But there was not a lot of awareness that in my free will, how much choice I actually had.
This reminds me, and it seems like it's completely unrelated, but as soon as you said this, I was like, yeah. And so there's this gentleman that I just recently met, and he's been in health and wellness for years and years and years and years. And he's done all kinds of different businesses and like created businesses and sold businesses, but it's always been in this health and wellness and then his own personal life and all these things. And I want to say he's like 50 something, like late 50s, I think. Oh, he might not be. And then he's going to be like, if he ever sees this, what? We won't say what his name is. And then that way he won't ever know I'm talking about him. But I think he's in his like mid to late 50s. And he's like, everything I've ever done in my life was the accumulating to this moment, because now this is everything I came to the planet to do. Right. And this is where we don't know that all these things, and we don't know, I start a business and I sell a business, and then I start this other thing, and then I did this other thing, and it seemed like a failure, and it seemed like maybe this didn't work, and I got to this point and I hated it, and like I reached this thing and that wasn't the answer, and then all of a sudden it's like and everything I did up to this time was for this. And I think that is like sometimes where hindsight's 2020, like you can look back and go, oh my gosh, I did make a bunch of choices, but they were all bringing me here. Or again, what you were talking about with that level of freedom is if we hold on to, okay, all of this is going to make sense eventually, even if it doesn't now. Right. And I think that's what brings us back to the freedom again, when we find the value on both sides, when we find truth on both sides, it creates for us an experience that is fuller than if we were only on one side or the other.
Yeah. And I just think going back to the very basics of why we even do the principles in the first place, the principles are that it works, right? Like, yes, it kind of seems obvious when we say these out loud. And as we go through all of these principles, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, how can you guys talk about that for like 30 minutes? Believe me, we'll find a way. But second, it's like I had never even conceptualized them being separate. And even just us saying the words and having you think about it and start to play in the energy of, oh, what if that's true? What if my human operates this way and my spirit operates this way? And both can be true. Like that to me has been the biggest mind opener, body opener, experience opener, freedom shifter, whatever you want to call it. Because it is so, it doesn't have to be overly complex. It's actually so simple. It's so simple. And what came up as you were talking about this man was actually that book by Michael, I forget his last name, but The Surrender Experiment.
Singer?
Yeah, Michael Singer. And if you haven't listened to that, it might be a book that's fun for you. But what I'm perceiving in that book is he came to experience a lot of destiny. He didn't make a lot of choice along the way. He just, everything on his path was a yes, yes, yes. There was no contemplation of that. my path has been way more free will. Like, and with doing that, I have been able to understand how to stay on, I'm not saying this in the way it's going to come across, on track with my destiny, because I can feel when I'm veering off in my choices, and I can feel when I'm aligning. And that's why I'm here on this planet, is to feel it all so that I can really intuit my way and navigate my way towards my destiny through choice, which is really fun. Like, I hadn't really, we talk about that one sometimes with surrender, because it's another one of our principles, but that's really destiny. Yes, 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 yes. That wouldn't feel fun for me at this point, anyways.
Well, and as you say that, I'm thinking about the conversation we had before we started, and I'm like, I feel like I exercised so much of that free will, right? I mean, I tried this and I tried that, and I did this business and I did that business, and I had a career for this time, and then I had another career for this time, and then I'm doing this, and there's and then it was like I got to this point. I almost don't even want to say it out loud, where I actually have been called to surrender, and I've been still trying to choose too much of my free will, which is why there's some things that have been super frustrating for me, because it's the other side of the pendulum. It's bringing the balance, it's bringing, and I've been rejecting it because I've been so used to the free willing it.
Good awareness. Yeah.
And guys, this is the beauty of two things. One, separating it, talking about it, looking at what does it look like to be participating in free will? What does it look like to be participating in destiny? And then to be sitting here going, oh my gosh, because guys, any kind of suffering, frustration, overwhelm, blah, 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 anxiety, depression, all of the things. Now, hear me well, please. I'm not saying that we didn't come here to have sometimes particular experiences. This is not gonna like make you immortal, right? Because we came to the planet to be mortal, right? This doesn't mean that if you do this, you're never going to get cancer, because maybe you came to the planet to get cancer, okay? But what I'm saying is, if there's significant dis-ease in your life, it is because you're on one side of the pendulum and the other side of the pendulum is calling you. Does that make sense? And so, like right now, there's been some things that I've just had a lot of frustration, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work. But really, like inside, I know I've been being called to surrender, and I think I'm surrendering, but I didn't do it the way that Gina just described it, right? And so two things. One, the separating it makes it so clear what we are or are not functioning in and why we're suffering. And then just having dialogue about, well, what does that mean to you? Well, what do you think of that? Well, what's coming up for you? Will allow our super conscious, which is that part of us that is the knower, to actually divulge things that maybe we've stuffed down because we think we know something. But then when we're just in this free dialogue, all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, okay, yep, got it, yep. Is it really 34? Yeah. Are we supposed to be on the call? Is that a different day?
Different day.
We just did that last week?
We have an extra one this month.
Oh, we have an extra one. Okay, guys, we're okay. We're okay, everything's okay. I thought we were supposed to be on another call right now, but we're not, because we're here.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying too, because when you just said,
oh, sorry,
like for you, that was a revelation of your super conscious, but it also can reveal what's in our subconscious as well. Because when we start to find, well, why am I not swinging to the other side? I'm usually finding wrongness, or I have a belief or a story that's stuck inside of me that can be revealed, because the timing is now right for me to have more freedom, for me to be able to embody a little more of my human or a little more of my spirit in the fullness of it, as opposed to only being one because it's the right way to be.
Talk a little bit about that, because I'm not sure that we really have like expressed that Because there's a lot of times where we talk about like the light and the dark, and this is the opposite, and this is, but from our model, what is the opposite of freedom?
Not free.
Well, it's funny because you totally just said it. That's why I was like, oh my gosh,
Wrongness.
wrongness. Yeah, wrongness. It is our perception of the wrongness that prevents us from being free. And like, yeah, you totally said it. I was like, oh yeah, talk about that, because that's something that we really like, why we're always looking for the value of both sides of the pendulum, because if I'm not finding the value, it's because I'm finding the wrongness. And if I'm finding the wrongness, then I'm not free in that area, because my identity is always in right standings. Therefore, if something in my perception is wrong, then I will always push against it. It's like oil and water. They can't mix. My rightness can't mix with wrongness. So if there's wrongness available, then I can't enter in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm repelled from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I'm not free, because now I'm obligated to be on the right side.
Yeah, and I have so much experience with this complete rejection of one side, because, and it was just as you were talking in the beginning, like I feel like I was trained through my own study to reject the human, because the goal was to transcend. It's better over there. Like the human experience is less than, like it's immature in some ways. And in this model, which is kind of like it's opposite, because I was looking to be more of my spirit, but yet I was humaning the shit out of my life. And I was really far on all of the principles of what we perceive as the human, while I was trying to get to that other side. Yet there was no depth to it, because there was so much wrongness with where I was. This is a really interesting, everything is opposite in my mind right now situation. Yeah, there's just so much freedom when we start to even just be aware that we're carrying wrongness.
Yeah. And I think that we've been taught that these things are wrong. And we can look out in the world and go, yep, we can see how that's wrong there and what it causes. And yep, that's wrong and what it causes. And that's detrimental and that's toxic. And that's what the pain comes from. And that's right. And when we really start to step back and look at the cause and the effect of all of that, and we look at the perception of all of that, and how so much of the perception shifts how we're interacting with it, then we realize how much we are actually causing that negative result, and not that the negative result is from the actual thing. Right? Yeah.
Well, I really hope that as you're listening, pay attention to how it's making you feel, even these words of free will and destiny. Like what comes up for you? Where are you operating from? Are you finding wrongness in one side or the other? Do you find that you're drawn to one or the other more so? And does that feel good right now? Can you hold space for both? Is that possible? What if it is possible?
Yeah, and I would even say, like, because as you were saying that, like, are you finding wrongness? And I think about, yeah, where are some areas we can find wrongness? And we kind of talked about it a little bit in the beginning, like that whole idea of like free will, or destiny. The wrongness of it is, well, then I don't have choice, right? Destiny means by itself, then I don't have choice. Something else is controlling me, and that doesn't feel good. And so even if we're like, oh, I can entertain this, but we're hanging on to, oh, but there's control. Well, where can you find the value of that control? Right. And again, it goes back to, well, just like Gina was saying, like she's not afraid to make a mistake and screw up, because destiny says she ultimately can't get off her path. So it actually does give her more freedom to make choices than less freedom to make choices, right? And then on the flip side, when we think about, well, if we have too many choices and we're afraid to screw it up, well, then free choice and free will isn't a good idea if I have too many and I'm afraid to screw it up, right? Which is where then we go, oh, wait a minute. Destiny in that is what allows me to choose. And if I screwed up, it's okay because I didn't screw up ultimately, right? I might have just made a choice that was like, I would do that different, right? So really, like Gina was saying, like listen to your body or sense your body. What is your body saying or sensing or feeling or experiencing when we're talking about this? And where are you perceiving that you're not free? And where are you perceiving the wrongness? And really start to ask yourself, well, what would be the value of that? One of Gina's favorite thing is what if? What if this was a good idea? What if, like, if you feel like, well, no, destiny's bad, wrong, whatever. Well, what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't? What would that create, or what would that mean, or what would that allow for me?
Yeah, I love that shift into curiosity. It feels so good in my body personally. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, guys, if you have questions about this, or if there's something we can help you move through, please comment. Make sure you subscribe. And we're going to do this every week, and we're going to keep bringing you some principles and some practices and unpacking this. And
yeah, and we always want to invite you, like, if this is really fun for you, we've got classes that go really deep into all of this, and you get time with coaches to unpack it for you and you specifically. So stay tuned, and we'll definitely let you know of offerings that we have coming up.
For sure. See you next time, guys.